going to start recording the class. For the ones who are not here, that is about 10 students who are not here, are attending to this class. So today we're going to talk about one of the greatest civilization in the world, that is the Greek civilization. And Aldito, Adriel Aldito, he just arrived. Aldito, Adriel, Caldito. Okay, let's continue. Where is it? Here's the PowerPoint. Yes. And not drape, just a dry. Drape. Okay, yes. So today's class, we're going to talk about the Greek civilization, and the capital of that very important civilization is Athens. Athens is also a very important city. Why? Because the democracy that a governance system that lives in most of the cities here in the world is democracy. So where the country or the place where the democracy began was in Athens, in the great Greek civilization, okay? But before this was another kind of system, okay? Like it says, Greek is the birthplace of democracy. The word democracy comes from Greek word meaning rule of the people, las leyes del pueblo. But Greek city-states didn't start as a democracies, and not all became democratic. In early Athens, kings ruled the city-states. Los reyes eran los gobernantes. Ellos hacían todo lo que ellos querían. Después de los reyes vinieron los aristocrats, power. A government in which only a few people, o sea, solamente un grupo de personas eran los que manejaban el gobierno. A few people have power is called oligarchy. In the 600 BC, a group of rebels tried to overthrow, o sea, de tumbar ese sistema, the aristocrat, and they failed. Ellos fracasaron. Después, a man named Draco created a new set of laws for Athens. Draco, este Draco que está aquí, él creó un grupo, una serie de leyes para gobernar Atenas. These laws brought many harsh order to the city. Causó mucha convulsión esta ciudad. For example, Draco's law made minor crimes such as looting punishable by death. In the 590s BC, a man named Solon created a set of laws that were most less harsh and gave more rights to non-aristocrats. Under Solon's laws, all free men living in Athens became citizens. Teresa Santa Maria was arrived, or is late already. So, and then here's another kind of government that they call it tyrants, the race of tyrants. Because of the Athenians weren't pleased with the rule of the aristocrats, they wanted a new government. So in 9046 BC, a noble named Pisistratus overthrew the oligarchy. He became ruler of Athens. Pisistratus was called a tyrant. Ahora, si nosotros traducimos tyrants, quiere decir tirano. Pero en aquel entonces la palabra tirano no tenía el significado que ahora tiene. Mire lo que dice aquí. Today the word tyrant means a ruler who is harsh, o sea que es muy estricto, harsh, muy malo. But the word had a different meaning in ancient Greek. Athenians tyrants were usually a good leader, o sea que un tirano, la palabra tirano en aquel entonces significa que era un buen líder. ¿Ah? ¿Alguien tiene un micrófono abierto? Apaguen el micrófono. El micrófono allá. Opina, apaga el micrófono. Opina.
Sí, yo lo tengo apagado. No.
¿Quién es?
Ok. Solo un
Chinito, son un chinito.
Ok.
Vamos a ver quién es. Ah, Yesulison. ¿Para qué aprende el micrófono? Ya que venía, eso es lo malo, que tengo que venir acá para poder ver quién es el que tiene el micrófono abierto. Okay, now, Peristratus brought peace and prosperity to the city. He began new policies meant to unify the city. After Pisistratus died, his son took over as tyrant. Some aristocrats convinced rival city-states to attack Athens. As a result of this invasion, and the tyrants lost power for a short time. Aristócratas returned to power, o sea que nuevamente los aristócratas se apoderaron del poder de Atenas. Vamos a ver qué sucede después. Dice, Athens create democracy. Cleisthenes en español, Cleisthenes didn't want aristocrats to run the government. He thought they already had too much influence. By calling on the support of the people, Cleisthenes was able to overthrow the aristocracy once and for all. Under Cleisthenes' leadership, Athens developed the world's first democracy. For this reason, he is sometimes called the father of democracy. A él se le conoce como el padre de la democracia, a Cleisthenes, el padre de la democracia, porque él fue el que comenzó la democracia en Atenas. In a democracy, the rule of government is to encourage individual freedom and to give citizens the opportunity to rule themselves. During meetings, people stood before the crowd and gave speeches on political issues. After the speeches that were over, the assembly voted. Voting was usually done by a show of hands, but sometimes the Athens used secret ballots. Creating laws with public discussion helped make government accountable to the people. According to one Greek writer, the government sent slaves to the market to round up more citizens if necessary. Because the assembly was so large, it was sometimes difficult to make decisions. The Athenians therefore selected citizens to be city officials and to serve on a smaller council. Change in Athenians' democracy. As time passed, the role of Athenian citizens expanded to include more significant power. For example, citizens had the responsibility to serve on jury and decide court cases. Athens remained a democracy for about 170 years. It reached its highest under the brilliant elected leader named Pericles. He led the government from about 460 BC until his death in 429 BC. Pericles, el famoso Pericles. Pericles believed that participating in government was just as important as defending Athens in war. To encourage more citizens to participate in government, he paid those who serve in public office or juries. Muy bien. Now let's watch a video that summarizes what democracy is. Okay, guys, let's watch this video.
Hello friends, welcome to a new Happy Learning video. Today, we're going to learn about one of the most ideal and revolutionary ideas that man has created. Today, we're going to learn about democracies. A democracy consists of the idea that a country's citizens participate in the election of who will govern them and the political decisions that the government takes. This is offered through the right to vote when we are overaged. But democracy wasn't always like this, and it has experienced a long journey before becoming the way we know it today. Let's travel in time to see how it all started. The birth of the first democracy. The word democracy comes from the Greek word meaning town. It's an idea that was first thought of a long time ago by citizens in Athens, a city in ancient Greece. It consisted of a government system where decisions were discussed and decided by a citizens' assembly. The members of the assembly were selected by a raffle, and the decisions were agreed after a majority of votes in favour. But what is true is that neither women or slaves could vote. They had no rights. Sometime after, the Greeks' democratic ideas travelled to Rome. In ancient Rome, they started to approve laws and chose their governors through citizens' assemblies. Although, if you wanted to be part of these assemblies, you had to be rich, noble, and very powerful. The town couldn't decide yet. It still wasn't an authentic democracy. In medieval times, democracies didn't exist. It was the kings and noblemen who made all the decisions, and they acted like real tyrants, like dictators who didn't care about the rest of the town. This was until the end of the 18th century, where the French Revolution erupted. In 1789, French citizens faced and defeated the absolute monarchy. From this moment on, the first real democratic ideologies took place in France. Especially the right to universal suffrage. So, any citizen, regardless of them being rich or poor, could vote and participate in their governor's elections. Although, the universal part wasn't all true, because women couldn't vote yet. Over time, democracies travelled to many other countries where they were also established as the governmental system. But, unfortunately, there have been and still are differences and inequalities between people. For example, women couldn't vote in many countries until the 20th century. And some races, like the black race, were and still are considered secondary citizens in many parts of the world. Democracies still need to be perfected. Well, now we know democracy's history, and we've learnt that it looks for general welfare and is based on respecting each other and human equality, whether they are man or woman, rich or poor, white or black. Everyone has the same rights, but also the same duties. So, we need to respect the rules and norms set. This is democracy, and in Happy Learning, we love this ideology because we believe in equal rights. We believe in respect and solidarity, that we think that nobody is superior to another. Goodbye, friends, and don't forget to subscribe to
Now let's watch another one, the monarchy, this one.
Hello there, children. Let's talk about the governments of ancient Greece. Here is Greece, isn't it lovely? I know. So during the early stages of settlement, the geography of Greece led the people to settle in these isolated communities. These little guys are called city-states. The separation of these settlements caused these city-states to develop their own identity that they were extremely proud of. In addition to pride, these city-states developed their own laws, army, money, and most importantly for this talk, government. The first government that was developed in these city-states was a monarchy. Kings ruled ancient Greece from 2000 BCE to 800 BCE. Let's get a king up here. Nope, wrong king. Nope, wrong king. Ah, that's a good king. At first, these monarchs were chosen by the people, and when they died, another leader was eventually selected to take their place. But soon, kings demanded the power to go to their children after their death. Typically, the oldest son. Ooh, that's a good son. Kings made laws, they acted as judges, they conducted religious ceremonies, they led the army during wars. They also had these guys called aristocrats to advise them. The aristocrats had no real power, but eventually they realized they were stronger than the king and wanted to share the power. Soon enough, aristocrats overthrew the monarchy and took the power for themselves. By 800 BCE, kings no longer ruled most of the city-states. Okay, the government that did rule was called an oligarchy. By 800 BCE, most Greek city-states were ruled by a small group of wealthy men called aristocrats, or oligarchs. And these oligarchs had one major characteristic in common: they were wealthy. They spent their days hunting and their nights partying. All the while, the poor were working extremely hard and saw little benefits. For the most part, the oligarchs ignored the poor and passed laws that benefited themselves and the rich citizens. The rich became richer, and the poor became poorer. Needless to say, the poor did not like the oligarchs. The poor turned to strong leaders who promised to improve their lives. These leaders would eventually throw the oligarchs out of power, and they would take power by force. Okay, that brings us to our next government, called a tyranny. This is where power is totally taken by force. During the mid-600s BCE, many Greek city-states turned to tyrants who promised to change their government. Generally, the tyrant took power by force unlawfully. Most tyrants were military leaders who gained support by making promises to the people. Many tyrants made changes to the government that helped out the poor. Sometimes tyrants did not use their power to help the poor, but instead ruled harshly. Eventually, tyrants would be forced out of power only to give way to a new form of government called a democracy. The people wanted to rule themselves. Insert democracy. Yay, democracy! By 500 BCE, Athens decided to try to govern themselves. The citizens decided to share in the ruling power. Athens developed an assembly which consisted of any adult male citizen. The definition of a citizen is very specific. You must fall under certain categories to be considered a citizen. Okay, these citizens could speak in the assembly, vote on new laws, or other proposals. Athens' democracy was called a direct democracy because all citizens had the chance to vote. And that's it, boys and girls. There are 4 of our governments in ancient Greece up until democracy decided to stick around. That's all I got for you. Here are some sources. Thank you. See you next time.
Okay, guys, with this video, we finished this chapter. It's 10:44. Remember, you need to complete this, you need to send me these documents in this Dropbox. Acuérdense que son todo esto los assessments que tienen que enviar ustedes. Todo esto que está aquí. Y esta es la rúbrica que voy a utilizar para evaluar. Me la envían por aquí, por esta carpeta. ¿Entendido, chicos? Acuérdense que tienen de aquí hasta el viernes para enviarme todos esos documentos. ¿Ok? ¿Alguna pregunta? ¿No questions? Ok, chicos, si no hay preguntas, entonces nos vemos la otra semana. Chao, chao.